and welcome to I Talk to Ghosts, the podcast that is happy to point out every haunted location as we drive through your town. I'm your spirited host, Jennifer, a professional medium with 13 bookshelves full of ghost stories. Tonight, I'm glad you're here, dear listener, because we will be exploring the dark and spooky subject of hooded figures. Are they wandering spirits or perhaps death itself? Come calling. Listen and decide for yourself. Also, let's light a few candles and gather around the seance table for a message from the spirits. With your attendance, there's a chance this message is uniquely for you. And before that, I have a new in-studio spirit reading with my podcast guest. And if you're new to the podcast, I love sharing my work as a medium. And I offer a chance for a free reading with me, so listen for those details later on in the podcast. But first, grab a dark shroud. The ghosts are coming in right now. When my sister was in high school, she had a friend who had thankfully recovered from childhood leukemia. While they were hanging out one day, he told her he saw an entity during his time in the hospital. He described it to be sort of a grim reaper, a skeleton in a black robe, but with one defining feature. Its eyes were nothing but swirls. Sometime later, I can't remember how long exactly, I had been suffering from frequent night terrors. I was maybe 6 or 7 at the time. Almost every night, I would wake up screaming, and since my sister's room shared a wall with mine, she would wake me up and take me back to her room so I could fall back asleep. I don't remember this because I was so young, but when she asked me what I had been dreaming about, that scared me so badly, I had replied with a description that left her speechless. I had described the exact figure her friend had seen, even to the swirl in its eyes. She was confused, rightfully so, because there was no way I could have heard what her friend had said that day. I wasn't with them. She was creeped out and concerned, and now I am too. When I was 6 years old, I was sleeping in my mom's bedroom because I had had a nightmare. Later that night, I woke up to a very tall man walking into the bedroom. This figure or being was at least 9 feet tall and stooped under the door frame as he entered the room. It was wearing a hooded black cloak. I couldn't see his face. As it approached, it was not looking in my direction. It just simply looked ahead. And I watched quietly as it walked in front of the foot of the bed. It crossed at the far right corner, the side my mom was sleeping on. Suddenly, it turned as if it was going to come over to my mom's nightstand. Then, it simply vanished. I tell my mom this story, and she began to cry. She said that every single night, she would get on her knees and pray in that exact spot where the figure disappears. She believes that the evil spirit could not pass the barrier she created by praying. During high school, it was common for me and my friends to regularly rotate houses and throw slumber parties. Every few months, we'd kill the whole night talking, laughing, dancing to the radio, and rarely ever actually sleeping. Eventually, just talking and dancing got boring. So to liven up the party, we'd fall into the typical slumber party game of the two-finger corpse lift and/or a seance. Every seance bottomed out with someone hilariously falling apart in a laughing fit. The very last slumber party was held at Carrie's, who lived out in a more rural area where there were dense woods at the edge of her backyard and houses were spread apart. She invited my closest friend Pam, myself, and the usual other 7. As luck would have it, I came down with the flu that weekend and couldn't go. When Monday morning rolled around, I got to school expecting to find everyone in a jovial mood, but instead, my friends were not even talking to each other, and barely to me. I suspected there had been a real big blow-up at the party, but was puzzled as to why none of my friends wanted to talk about it. Slowly, the friendships healed, but it was never quite the same old group, and I was the only one who didn't know why. Years later, I finally got the story. Apparently, that very last slumber party started off as usual, with the typical joking, laughing, and dancing to the radio. Then, it was decided to have a seance. This time, everyone had to solemnly swear to take an oath and try hard to get something to happen. They went through the usual ritual, darkening the room, lighting candles, and sitting in a circle, touching hands. For an hour and a half, they tried to summon celebrities like Marilyn Monroe, JFK, Jimi Hendrix, and Janis Joplin. Nothing. Then someone thought to provide the appropriate mood music by putting on Jim Morrison. Through an entire song, they tried to summon the troubled spirit of Jim Morrison. When the song ended without any spirit manifestation, they called it quits. Bored, disappointed, and thirsty, they broke the circle and put on more cheerful music. Pam and a few others went into the kitchen to get sodas, while the others remained in the living room. Pam was standing near the back open kitchen door, which looked out into the backyard and towards the woods. There, through the screen door, about 20 yards away, at the very edge of the line of trees, she saw a tall, dark figure standing very still. The figure stood quite close to the back of the garage, where there were some floodlights attached, aimed at the middle of the backyard. At first, she thought it was the silhouette of a black bear standing on its hind legs, but after a few more minutes of study, the figure more resembled the size and shape of an adult human male. Something about the way it just stood there gave Pam the shivers. Just as she was about to call out to Carrie in the next room, the dark shape, as if on cue, suddenly began moving towards the house. As it neared and entered the edge of the floodlights, Pam saw that the figure was wearing what appeared to be an oversized monk's robe that was positively pitch black. Although the face was obscured in the deep recesses of the hood, she sensed its eyes staring in her direction. For some reason, she was particularly disturbed by the hem of the outfit, and at first couldn't put her finger on exactly what was wrong. Then, it dawned on her. The monk-like figure wasn't walking at all. It was gliding, and the bottom of the robe was lightly brushing against the very tops of the high grasses in the backyard. In fact, he was floating a foot above the ground. The instant Pam realized the figure was not human, the girls in the living room began screaming hysterically. Instinctively, Pam knew they were looking at the same exact figure out the window from the next room. The dark figure advanced quickly towards the screen door, where she stood frozen in place, too terrified to move. When the figure was about 10 feet away, Pam found herself slamming the inside door so hard that the screen on the door popped out and the kitchen wall rattled, knocking several containers off a shelf. When Pam regained her senses, she was on the floor of the back bedroom, huddled together with the rest of our shaking, sobbing friends. Carrie's parents rushed around trying to calm everyone down. The nearest neighbors had heard the screaming and called the sheriff's department. The police arrived, and Pam and Carrie, each of whom had been in different rooms when they spotted the thing, gave officers identical descriptions of a black hooded figure floating off the ground and approaching the back kitchen door of the house. Police searched the grounds but found nothing. When our friends' parents arrived to take them home, the policeman explained that the girls had probably gotten themselves into an overexpectant state during the seance, so that when one mistook an animal in the backyard for the walking dead, her screaming set off the other girls as well. My friends objected and never accepted the policeman's conclusion. It had taken me 6 years to discover what had happened that night at that last slumber party. Still, despite my friends' obvious discomfort, I really wished I had been there. Do you have a personal ghost story you would like to tell me? I may share it on the podcast. Email me at speaknow@italktoghosts.com. Hello and welcome back to I Talk to Ghosts. My guest this evening is Karen. Karen, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fairly well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. I'm excited that we are meeting. I'm feeling the energy coming in. Everyone is excited at this point, I think.
Yes.
And I think we're going to have a really, really wonderful reading.
Wonderful.
Now, you reached out to me because of a message from the spirit. You thought very much so that it was your stepdad. Let's call him Dad because he very much is your dad,
yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for reaching out and continuing the conversation with me on that.
I really could not wait. I kept on listening and listening and hoping he would come through, and he did. So I'm very, very excited about it.
I think there's a really good point to that, right? You reached out, you made that request, and with all your heart, and Spirit answers us back.
Yes.
And I think it's something that others could benefit from as well. Okay, now with your dad.
Yes.
His first initial impression for me, he's coming through with a really big heart and just an abundance of generosity with that. And he really does want to give you the biggest hug. He just wants to hold you and let you know that it's okay. With his energy, it feels as if life taught him so much about the value of generosity. I'm wondering if he had events in his life where he really learned to appreciate it. Like maybe he had to go without a little bit in order. I said value in life, heart, emotion is not about what you have.
Yes.
In the material world, it's about what you give and who you are and the relationships that you have. So can you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah. Growing up, he had 3 brothers, so there was 4 boys. His mom was such a spitfire. She cracked me up. She'd always say, "That's the best part." Like whenever, like you took tomatoes off a sandwich or something because you don't like it, she would always tell you that's the best part. But growing up, they really had to make do with what they had. And there was a point in time when his mom tried to make homemade ketchup because they had to go without. And one of his brothers was like, "No." And she's like, "Okay, well, I'm going to make ketchup and you're going to do a blind taste test. And if you could tell me which one is the real ketchup, I won't make ketchup anymore." So yeah, I mean, they had to make do with whatever they had. And if they didn't like what she cooked, it would be bread and butter for dinner. It's just, it's very much, they struggled and they just had to make do with what they had. Absolutely. And I think that's what really made him who he was, because he was a great guy with a very big heart.
Absolutely. And I think that philosophy and that energy is just coming through so much. And I am so moved. I can't describe it. But know that he is here with you. He's absolutely here with you. If you close your eyes, ask him to put his hand on your shoulders, call him close, and he's there for you. He absolutely is. Okay. He did want to say that he does know how his passing impacted people, and he is sorry about that. He in a way, he's like, I kind of did it to myself, or just, some of the choices that I made. And wow, he's just so generous about his approach to anything. He just wants to really give you all the love,
Yeah. And it was very abrupt. He had heartburn, and that was his only symptom. And he had never had heartburn before. He had worked all day because that's just who he is. And he worked from home. And he told my mom that they needed to go to the doctor because the heartburn wasn't getting any better. He went into cardiac arrest, which we didn't know. And he started having a seizure. And the paramedics were there pretty quick. But I'm pretty sure he died in my mom's car and she watched him die.
I think that's what he was expressing, that he could have done something sooner.
Yeah.
I think he wanted to bring some peace to that he takes responsibility for that. No one else should feel that blame of, oh, I should have forced him, or, oh, I should have paid more attention, or, oh, I should have taken it more seriously.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to put that on anyone. He has conveyed to me, and I don't ask this question very often as spirit, what are you doing? What are you doing now? Because to me, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And my human brain kind of short circuits and I lose it. But he said to me, he's having a great time getting the answers. So that's what he said he's doing right now. He's having a great time absorbing all this knowledge and information. Does that sound like the type of person that he is? Was he a very inquisitive person?
He was smart. So smart, and just never wanted to stop learning, and just, always. And both of his parents passed within probably a year and a half, 2 years of each other. And so now I know that he's with them and he's with my grandma. So I know that they're together, and I'm sure he's asking them all kinds of questions. And yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Was there anyone in particular that he admired? Maybe not someone he knew, but like he loved reading up on this person. Like I see him reading and then looking up and saying, and this is just so interesting. And I love this approach and this take on things. Like I just see him reading and then turning around and sharing that information with other people.
I don't know if there was any, but he read all the time. He did.
Okay.
But I don't, I mean, he could have said that to my mom. We weren't there, of course, all the time, but yeah. And like he and my significant other got along so tremendously. It was just amazing, and I think that they both admired each other.
Yeah, I think he's expressing that he loves your guy.
Yeah,
and he sees him supporting you so much emotionally. Like they can connect to each other on an emotional heart level. That I think might be considered rare for men.
Absolutely.
but he's like, oh yeah, your guy, his heart is just also one of value and compassion, and he's saying, oh, lean on him, honey, if you have to.
And I have been.
I had kind of asked him about his job, because I always kind of try and pluck information like, who's this? And he's like, I don't want to talk about my work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, he didn't really talk about his work very often. I know he was a numbers guy. I don't know exactly what he did, but he was a numbers guy, and that's about all I know about his job.
Yeah. He's kind of like, that's not what defines me.
Yep.
And I did get the impression that he conveyed back and forth information with people. Like, he was kind of a conduit transfer type of information kind of guy.
Yep.
But I'm like, all right, well, you want to give me more than that? And he's like, no, that doesn't define me. It's not really, something that we have to talk about from the great beyond. Is kind of what he was joking about there. Let me see. I was kind of getting the impression of like, did he have like a favorite stew or chili? It seemed like it was something in a bowl.
Oh, well, I know that they had homemade soups a lot for their Christmas gatherings with his family. Like every year we would do something, and more than 1 year it was soups. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he was kind of showing me that. I'm like, oh, all right. I love that. It's very comforting.
Absolutely.
He made a joke about, hey, he could really use some coffee.
Yeah.
And could you make him some coffee?
Yeah, they drink coffee all the time at my mom's, like all the time. She, like, whenever we come over, wants some coffee. I'm like, Mom, no. But yes, all the time at their house, coffee.
Yeah, and like it came in as a joke form. He was like, could you tell her to make me some coffee? Make her laugh. Ask her to make me some coffee.
That's
and
funny.
See what happens.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, Scott. Oh, yeah.
He's showing me like mountains, some tall mountains. Like I think maybe that was that could have been a wish of his, or.
We're originally from Colorado, and my mom and him met through work, and they got married, and she moved to Iowa because his youngest son from a previous marriage, was still in high school. So he always told my mom that they could move back to Colorado if she wanted to after his son graduated. They just never did.
Is there anything that you wanted to kind of ask about, or something that we didn't cover today that you were hoping would come through?
I just want to make sure he wasn't in pain when he died.
No, I mean, he's conveying to me some weight and some pressure, but and then just lightness. you know. Like I said, I think he really wanted to convey that he knows there was a big impact on people, and he also wants to make sure that no one is blaming themselves for how they acted or what they did in the situation. But yeah, he's absolutely at peace.
Okay.
You know, and you can't joke about coffee and not, you know, be at a certain level of peace and understanding with the universe and how things work. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today. This has been so moving.
I appreciate it very, very much. I'm so grateful and thankful that he came through. I am.
Before we go, I would love to ask you if you have a personal ghost story that you would love to share.
Oh, yes, I do.
Yay! Listener ghost story.
I was probably around, I would say about 9 or 10, and one of my aunts and uncles moved to this house, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, I don't know. It was painted black, all black, and it had white shutters, and it gave me a very, very weird feeling, and I was like, okay. And so they moved in, and after a while things started happening. My uncle would say to my aunt, you know, I gotta go and blow out the candle in the bathroom because they were getting ready to leave. And as soon as they hit the door jamb, the candle blew out itself. Another thing that happened was they would go to bed at night, and if, you know, this is time, I'm dating myself here, when we had landlines, and the cord for the landline would be the jack in the wall before they went to bed, and in the morning it would be out of the wall on the floor, and they did everything to keep it in the wall. They super glued it, everything, and it would be out the next morning. The last thing I could think of that happened in the house was my youngest cousin, or younger cousin, I should say. Her bedroom was downstairs, and she went flying up the stairs, and she was telling her parents, the organ is playing by itself. It's playing by itself, and they're like, what? So they went downstairs, and nothing was happening, and then they hit the very bottom stair, and it started playing by itself, and it was unplugged. Oh, and I just thought of one more thing. My uncle got home before my aunt did, and he heard all the doors downstairs slam at the same time, and he went downstairs to investigate, and he heard footsteps upstairs, and he was like, oh, my aunt's home. And so he was walking up the stairs and calling her name, and he got upstairs and nobody was home. So yes, they were definitely trying to communicate whatever it was in the house.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Did they end up moving, or do they still live there?
No, they moved. They actually moved from that house a couple of times, and now they live in Tennessee. That's when we lived in Colorado. But yeah, they moved a couple of times, and I was grateful they were out of there, because that house always gave me the creeps. I did not like going over there. Knew. I did. There was a time when I think my aunt and uncle were going camping, because they were part of a camping club, and they asked me to go over there and stay the night with my youngest cousin, or my younger cousin, and I said okay. And so I was going to sleep in their bedroom, and I was like, okay, I'm not here to harm you. Please don't do any funny business. I don't want to wake up in the morning and see the phone jacks that, the phone cords out of the wall. I'm just here, like, just don't do anything funny, please, because I was like freaked out.
And they listened?
They listened. They did. It was plugged in the morning, so they left me alone, thankfully.
That's great. That's great. Yay! Oh my gosh, what a spooky story! That it seems like the type of house, like there was predictability to the haunting, but at the same time you didn't know what was going to happen.
Yes,
next.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like a free spirit reading with me and record your reading for the podcast? Sign up for your chance to be selected by visiting italktoghosts.com/guest. And as an added bonus, if you don't want to leave your reading up to chance, I'll let you in on a secret. There's a discount offer to book a private session with me, so you can book a date and time for certain. Visit italktoghosts.com/guest for more details. I can't wait to meet you. Hello and welcome back to I Talk to Ghosts. I have a message from the spirits this evening, so thank you for joining me around my little seance table. Tonight for this session, I have with me my favorite. This has mugwort in it and mullein and also wormwood. And what I like to do is take a little of this and just put it on my hands, activate those hand chakras, and visualize these elements. These herbs are just so wonderful for spirit communication. Just visualize and draw in that intent and then send that energy out as well. And for tonight's session, I have with me someone's father. He was an elderly gentleman, a lot of health burdens at the end. And there was a lot of family conflict about how everything should proceed, how he should be treated, where he should be, how to be taken care of. I feel like there was some push-pull between medical care versus being at home and comfortable. There were just many differing opinions, and he wants you to know that he doesn't want you to worry about if you made the right decision or not, or any of that. And for you to hold on to that worry and second guess yourself even now, it breaks his heart, because it doesn't pertain to anything now. Does that make sense? It's okay. He wants you to know it's okay. And he thinks that in a way, the worry and the second guessing about what happened in the past is kind of the focus of your grief for you, if that makes sense. And he wants you to know that you can let that go. And of course, miss your dad, mourn and grieve how you want to express yourself, move through those emotions, but he is saying that it is okay, and he wants you to remember the good times. He absolutely does. I'm wondering if he liked to organize the family reunions, because he's bringing those up as an example of good times. His message was very much wrapped up in there with what I just said. He wants to see you smile and be happy, and he loves your laugh. So I hope that this message reaches you and that it resonates and lifts that burden a little bit for you as well. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for being here and attending. And if this message connects for you, I would love to know. So please reach out to me. Thank you. Book a medium reading with me. If you have a past loved one you would like to connect with, a spirit reading can be an amazing and never spooky experience. I strive to give you specific details that align only to you and your loved ones. Curious? Visit italktoghosts.com for links to book with me. I can't wait to meet you. Welcome back to I Talk to Ghosts. I'd love to give a quick spooky shout out to everyone that I met at Haunted America last week. What an amazing event. If you haven't been to this convention in Alton, Illinois, make a point to do so next year. I will definitely be back myself. And with that, dear listener, we've reached the end. of this episode of I Talk to Ghosts. I hope you've enjoyed these spooky, shrouded stories that I've shared with you this evening. Have you ever encountered a dark hooded figure yourself? I would love to hear about it. In the meantime, wherever you wander off to in this world or the next, just remember, come back and visit with me. Have a lovely evening and good night.